The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Hey, welcome into episode number 3 of Crossed Flags from the Championship Racing Network. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson here. Before we get into it, and we're going to be talking a whole lot of tire talk when it comes to Bristol. Stick around for that. And we're also going to talk, because tomorrow, as we record Crossed Flags, actually begins the meat of the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
We're not a basketball show, but we know that a lot of people like to make out brackets. We're going to cover one of those for you because... yeah, we're questioning it. Let's put it that way. But
I am.
Yeah,
for sure.
First things first, though, I want to thank the guys from the Alabama Wildlife Federation. I'm wearing the shirt that I was given from being one of the judges last weekend out at Talladega Superspeedway for a regional wild game cook-off. And it was a lot of fun. Had the chance to do this last year. Checked out about 10 different dishes. First time in my life I ever had wild boar. Now, I will say this. Don't expect it to be vastly different from pig because they're all kind of in that same family.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with how you prepare it.
Right.
So tried that. Reportedly, somebody had brought like a kangaroo stew. I didn't get to try that one.
Yeah, I know who did that one.
Yeah, we both know who did that one. We're not going to say anything else about it. We're just going to say I'm kind of happy I didn't have it because it just sounds odd.
Yeah.
But if it had come in front of me, I might have tried it just for the curiosity of it. But I'm here to tell you. Crab stuffed shrimp wrapped in bacon. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That was good stuff. So thanks to Talladega, thanks to the Alabama Wildlife Federation, thanks to my co-judges that were on my 3-person team, me, Grady Sapp from our home station where we air Championship Racing Network on Saturdays, and Mike Derberly from Fox 6.
Nice.
So we had a good time. Had a real good time. Then we want to get into this, and this is where we bring in Molly. Kyle Busch is a 2-time Cup Series champion. Very good racer, won more than 60 races in Cup Series competition, and he decided he was going to wade into an area that you guys were talking about on 3-Man Front very, very heavily today. And again, we're recording this on Wednesday, so it's the day before, and it's the NCAA tournament. And we've got 4 teams from the state of Alabama, 3 of them going to Spokane, Washington, 2 of them out of the East bracket, somebody from the NCAA by a globe.
Yes.
But that's another story altogether.
Yes.
Since when was Spokane, Washington in the East? Never. Just saying.
Yeah.
So Kyle Busch, like a lot of celebrities and a lot of well-known people, filled out an NCAA tournament bracket.
He did.
We're not going to get into some severe detail here. We're just going to go straight to his Final Four. And Molly, this is where we bring you in and we find out what you think about Kyle Busch and his picks.
I'm excited.
Out of the South region,
Okay.
he has the Houston Cougars going.
Him and a lot of other people.
Houston's been pretty much top 5 team all year.
All year.
Same
Okay.
I have,
So I
I
can
have
see that.
Houston going.
I can see that. I haven't filled out a bracket this year.
Out of the Midwest, he has Creighton going.
Of all the teams in the Midwest, I'm not sure they would be my choice.
I've seen them as a lot of people's Midwest picks, but it's
Yeah.
still a little shocking to me.
Is that that's not the consensus pick though?
No.
Who do you figure is the consensus pick for the Midwest bracket?
See, a lot of people have been picking Purdue,
Okay.
but you cannot trust Purdue.
No, because they've been up and down all
You
year.
cannot trust Purdue.
You can't.
But that's just, again, with them being the number 1 seed.
So does that make the Midwest the toss-up bracket?
yeah,
to you?
I would probably say the Midwest. Or
Okay.
the East as
Okay.
well.
So
I've got Tennessee going out of the Midwest.
A lot of other
Okay.
people have Tennessee, too.
I've got
right.
Tennessee going.
but you could see where Creighton could do it.
I could see it.
Okay.
Genuinely, I could
Next.
see it.
Kyle, here's where we start to question, and I'm going to borrow a line from Charles Barkley. We got to start a dialogue.
Ah, okay.
Out of the East, he has UConn going.
Well, that I've heard more than one person call UConn.
I've seen a lot of people pick. They have been the most popular pick amongst
Out of
the
the East?
ESPN
Okay.
bracket challenge.
You have, and that's the region that you have the Southeastern Conference champions, your Big Ten champions, your Big 12 champions, and your American Athletic Conference champions.
So
that is the hardest
yeah,
division.
whoever's
That's the
coming out of the
reason.
East earned it.
Yo, for sure.
Oh, no doubt.
All right.
Out of the West, he
Yeah,
has
we're all
Alabama.
we're
He
all
has
questioning this
Alabama
one.
going.
We're all questioning that one.
No,
See,
I'm saying no.
I'm so sorry if you're an Alabama fan, and if you think they're going to go far, they're not.
The only way that's going to happen is if they got just ridiculously hot right now. That's the only way I see it.
And they are not. They are so cold.
Yeah.
They're
So
ice
cold.
cold. They're
They are
ice cold.
Yeah, they are ridiculously cold. Okay, so here comes the big question. Is Kyle Busch screwed on the game that is Friday, or does Alabama get to Sunday before they go out?
He doesn't
I
make it
would-
out of Friday. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He don't get out of
See,
Friday.
They should beat Charleston. Again, keyword should.
Should.
But I would be shocked if they made it to the Sweet 16. Shocked. I don't think they'll make it out of the round of 32.
There you go.
But that's
All right.
that's just one girl's opinion.
No, hey,
with
that's why we brought you in. We wanted
I'm
to have
with
your
her.
opinion on it. So there you go. All right. So we have Molly in on the show, and okay, that's enough basketball talk because we got to get to talking about racing, which is what we're really here for.
That's right.
That's why we have these crossed flags up behind us here. And we're going to go and concentrate a lot on Bristol. And I'm going to bring a little IndyCar into this, but I didn't tell you about that beforehand. That'll be a nice surprise for Matt.
All good.
All right. So we're going to talk about whether or not it is the fault of the fine folks that are the sole tire providers for NASCAR. And it's the guys whose logo you're about to see on the screen behind us. Them, Goodyear. Goodyear's been the lone tire provider for NASCARs going back to what, the 80s?
Yes. Hoosier was in the mid-90s for a little bit.
Was it mid-90s? I thought it
was
was
mid-90s.
late 80s. Okay. So if you watched Bristol last weekend, what you saw from the Cup Series on Saturday night is a heck of a lot different from what you saw from the Craftsman Truck Series on Saturday night. Craftsman Truck Series seemed to have a fairly easy run.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to really have tire problems, I guess is the better way to put it. And you were there for the Truck Series race Saturday
They
night.
didn't. There were minimal tire issues that I physically saw. I had the ability, I was able to migrate my way up and down pit road, especially on the backstretch side of pit road, and just eyeball and take a look. And it was really nothing that was uncommon on tire wear.
Okay.
It was, I guess you could say it was probably your average tire wear. The tires were not even as close, not even remotely close to looking the same as the way the Cup tires were looking on Sunday.
Okay, but in the fact that Saturday basically was a whole lot of track activity as you're preparing for the Cup
Sure.
and the Craftsman Truck Series races, and then you are qualifying, and there wasn't really a practice necessarily, but it was mostly qualifying. For you and for a couple of the drivers that you happen to be hanging out with, there were some things that were making you go, wait a minute, something might not quite be right here.
Well, the first thing that I saw was during Cup qualifying, and I even text you during the middle of Cup qualifying.
I remember this.
All right, round one of each group. They went Group A, Group B. Round one, your top two cars out of each group were in the 1510 to low 1520 range.
And for Molly, this should be of interest to her because Bristol Motor Speedway is banked at what, 30?
Bristol is 30.
30 degrees at a half mile. And most NASCAR drivers equate it to trying to fly a jet and a jet fighter in a gymnasium. Okay?
It's tight.
These things are ridiculously fast because the banking gives you a little bit of extra oomph going into the corner. So they're going ridiculously fast around a half mile.
Stupid fast.
You try and do a half mile in 15 seconds. Don't try that on the road, kids.
Yeah, true. All right. They go to the final round of qualifying. Your top 10 qualifiers, 5 out of it Group A and 5 out of Group B. They fall off to mid 15.3s, high 15.4s.
So they dropped off easily about 3 to 4 tenths.
Okay. When Group B started, sun was not on the racetrack. The racetrack got very, very cool. Racetrack slowed down dramatically.
And that's unusual for when the racetrack cools down for it to slow down.
Dramatically, yes. So with me I automatically went to thinking and listening with a helmet on. That's thinking like I'm in the seat of the car. I'm driving. I'm feeling everything. I'm listening to throttle response times with the Cup cars.
Right.
My first initial thought was they are having to wait on these cars an awfully long time. Awfully long time. Your pole winner, Ryan Blaney, was the only car that I recall in the final 10 that could get to the throttle at dead center of the corner or before. Everybody else, it was after dead center of the corner.
Which means you're losing a lot of speed.
Lot of speed, and you have no grip.
Yeah. Now let's make this clear, and we know this for a fact. And it's not just because it's trucks versus cars. But Goodyear brings two different compounds for the trucks versus the Cup Series cars.
Sure.
And they would do the same thing like this weekend at COTA, assuming Xfinity,
Yes.
all three of them are going to be there. You're going to have a different compound for the trucks versus Xfinity, and Xfinity is going to have a different one from Cup. And it's just because the cars are set up a lot different. But the other problem that you noticed was, and we'll show this picture, this is what the track looked like before we went racing, correct?
I took this photo standing at the start-finish line, looking back into turn 4. You can see the Geico restart zone right there. All right. One thing that you can look even from turn 4 all the way down, what's missing?
That little black strip where the cars tend to run on the racing line that they all prefer.
The racetrack was not taking rubber. None whatsoever.
But if you look on the surface there, right, in this area right here, I'm noticing there's rubber sitting on top of the track.
It's all sitting on top of it, because that is from 2 20-minute practice sessions for each group, 3 qualifying group sessions, plus a Truck Series qualifying session and a Truck Series practice.
And that's all you got.
And that's how you get. You're like, okay, He alluded to it earlier. I was standing on pit road before pre-race invocation and national anthem. Was standing on the grid and was talking to Brett Holmes, Stuart Friesen, and then Timmy Hill walked up. I'd said to Brett, and I knew he was starting 24th on the outside. I looked at Brett. I said,
outside lane. Ooh, hello.
I said,
with this, that becomes a problem.
I said, this track is not taking any rubber. And this is his facial reaction. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of nervous about that.
And then all of a sudden, he wasn't the only one that was worried about it.
There was a lot of folks worried about it.
Yeah. Stewart admitted he was also worried about it.
Yeah, he was like,
All right. The next picture we're going to show you, this will be during the race, and
Right.
you're going to see the aforementioned Brett Holmes. And granted, the picture isn't exactly the clearest of his, but that's Brett Holmes' truck on the bottom here. Now, a lot of people would say, looking right here, well,
Yeah.
look at that black strip. Isn't that the track taking rubber?
no.
That's not the track taking rubber
Negative.
because at Bristol, they put down a traction compound. Now, there's 2 that NASCAR will use. One's called a PJ1. But PJ1, they said, when it comes to rain, basically ends up getting washed off the track. So because there was rain potentially coming into the Bristol area, they decided instead of going with PJ1, they were going to go with a resin compound.
Going up that morning before, when we were on the drive up, until we got to Knoxville, it was overcast and cloudy. When you get past Knoxville, the weather turned fantastic. Cool weather. I took this photo standing on top of Victory Lane just as a still shot and just trying to catch 2 or 3 in the frame at one time.
Sure.
But I was able to catch that. He's at speed. This was probably about, I think it was lap 130.
Okay.
Around lap 130.
So give or take midway through the race.
Black streak on the bottom is the resin.
What's the black streak up on the
The
top?
black streak up top. And now the dirt racers will know what I'm talking about with this. This is actually a combination of rubber and the resin blowing off of the bottom down here and rolling up to the top. And sitting on the top, better known as the marbles or the dirty stuff.
Right.
All right.
So that makes that top part very treacherous.
Extremely treacherous. All right. Under cautions, the 4 natural cautions that they had, there were 2 accidents and 2 stage cautions. There was a Toyota track driving team truck, a Tundra, pulling a drag behind the truck, going into this top lane here, trying to run rubber in and resin, and it was not taking.
Which caught the attention of a couple of Truck Series team owners.
Yeah, I would right there on this same angle. I was standing on top of Victory Lane, standing with Brett's dad, Stacy, Bill McAnally, the owner of the truck that won the race, and David Gilliland. Now, I read Bill McAnally's mouth, and I can't repeat it because we're family show kids. They were all puzzled by what was going on.
Yeah.
Very puzzled. So walking
and
out,
got verbal about it too.
It got real verbal. Okay, walking out of the track, we had some friends that was with us, and I said we're gonna walk across the track, not through the tunnel. We're gonna walk across the track. So the entry point at turn 3, where the tunnel is, just the driver in me, I'm like, I want to see what this feels like. So I stuck the back of my hand down. It felt like talc powder on a hard surface.
And that's what resin will break down to.
Resin will break down to that. That's what it felt like. And I'm going, no wonder.
Yeah. So that's what they had on Saturday night. Sunday, knowing that we got this problem here, we still go out there. And this is Goodyear, going back to them, Goodyear stated that they brought effectively the same tire that they had last September. Now, think about this, though. Last September in Bristol wasn't exactly the coolest of nights. Certainly not as cool as it was last Sunday. It was at least, 20, maybe 30 degrees warmer? At least?
I'm going to say it was, I think in September night race, it was probably in the high 60s.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
20 to 30 degrees, give or take, somewhere in that area, 20 to 30 degrees warmer.
Right.
Could that have had an effect on what we saw?
I'm going to say no, because here's what I think the other effect was.
Okay.
They were running a totally different package.
That's true. This was the off-season short track package that they dialed in when they were at Phoenix.
Not this one.
Oh, this
they
is
had
even,
the
even different
intermediate
now.
package on the cars here.
Ooh.
The intermediate package makes a lot more downforce and drag than the short track package does.
So it's going to create the kind of wear on the tires you see right here behind us. This one right here, that is Cowlig Racing, and a tire that I think came off the 7 car?
That would be the 7 car, correct.
All right. So Cowlig Racing has that problem. That's after a run of what? 50-ish laps?
I think the longest run of the entire race on tires was 67 laps.
Okay. That tire basically is ridiculously useless. I mean, at that point in time, you're going from, and we'll say under race pace, when you've got 36, 37 of the cars on the track, you're probably doing, at best, a 15.4, 15.5 second lap, 15.5 second lap. Maybe a little faster, but not much.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
So that's 0.4 off fast qualifying pace. Okay. You're going to find, and I found this out by watching this race, and you were watching it too. Once you get to the tires that are at this particular point, you're talking about 18 to 19 second laps at best, which means you're a rolling roadblock.
It was basically you're on easy mode on a video game and everybody else is on a totally different mode because you're blasting by them like they're sitting still, no pun intended. And I mean, there's several guys I've seen on their social media channels and pages say that was fun, but it was the biggest you-know-what show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because
it's the combination of the two. Because you said it, and you have a dirt track background.
Right.
That's your bread and butter. Have you ever raced asphalt?
I have not.
Okay, the dirt track guy. Most of these drivers that are up in the Cup Series right now have a dirt track background. I'm not going to say all, but most of them do. Mm-hmm. It reminded them of those days when they were on dirt tracks.
Right.
But the thing about it is, we don't want this every single week.
In 10 years at a dirt race, an extended lap dirt race, I had one right rear tire that looked like that. That was really slick and got wore off because the track wore so much and took so much rubber. Dirt racing, you can't stop and change tires in a race. You got to deal with what you got.
Exactly. You have to
And
let it
that's
go.
it.
Here, you're given, is it 10?
There were 10 sets and they released an 11th.
Yeah. So that's how bad these things got. They had to release an 11th set of tires to these guys so that they could finish out the race. And even still, as we got into the last stage, they were having to go in and go. There were a couple of short runs. They had scuffed tires that they had already put on and then taken off and set aside. They still had to put the scuffed tires on to be able to finish the race out.
The compound set that they released was a compound set from last September that had age and weathering on it. But there were multiple drivers and crew chiefs that have related said the car acted the same with an aged set of tires on it.
So it didn't matter at all. Okay,
I'm
so
pretty
this
sure
is,
that's a compound, not a compound problem. That was a package problem.
it has to have been. So we go from Cowlick Racing. I think next up is the Stuart Haas Racing look, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
You can see pretty much the same exact problem when it comes to the SHR tire here, where you've got cord showing and everything else is worn down. I mean, nothing really is left of that tire. You couldn't get, I'd be shocked if you could get 3 more laps out of that.
If that many.
Yeah. And then one more. This one comes from Team Penske. Team Penske out there changing the tires on what I believe is, the 22 car, Joey Logano. Take a look at how much cord is showing off of that tire. Just on the part that you can see.
That's going to be the right front.
And that's going to be all the way around that tire on that particular part of it. I'll give Goodyear credit for one thing. They built a tire that was sturdy enough to get to that point of wear and not blow out.
Sure. But with what everybody's been griping and fussing about lately with the more horsepower, you've seen tire fall off like this. Horsepower's what are we talking about? Huh?
Yeah,
what is it going to be? What do you want? More horsepower or do you want tires that give up quicker? Or both?
Yeah. I mean, Denny Hamlin's out there calling for an increase of somewhere around 50 horsepower. Kevin Harvick has gone off and said, hey, these cars could actually do 1,000 horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
You want to put 1,000 horsepower on a tire like that? Whew. So here comes the question. Where's the solution here? Because it created it created kind of fun racing, I'll admit it. Once we got into that last stage, and we're starting to get into the last 50 to 75 laps. And we're starting to see those green flag pit stops come in. It was a lot of fun to watch and how was it that Kevin Harvick put it? The tires shut down on specific cars. And then all of a sudden, these guys that had come down and gotten 4 fresh Goodyear tires were zipping through there like you were talking about, like a video game. It was fun to watch. I can imagine it was harrowing for the drivers.
Oh, yeah.
I can imagine that was just absolutely mind-blowing for the drivers because you're playing chess at that point in time. You have to think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead going, how am I going to split these 2 that are here? But once I get past them, I've got 2 more guys that I have to figure out. Am I going high? Am I going low? Am I going to try and split the middle? But it was a lot of fun watching the tactics of it on television. It was very entertaining. But for the drivers, we're not going to want that.
I will read to you the exact quote that Chase Briscoe put on his Twitter yesterday. This is by far the most fun thing ever as a race car driver. It literally feels like a video game on easy mode when you have new tires and the rest of the field is on old tires.
Sure. All right. But you're not going to want that the whole time. We're not going to want to see this the whole time.
No.
But we also, a fuel run at Bristol in a Cup car is 125 laps?
The fuel run was 125, the same as trucks.
Okay. I don't want a tire that is going to come off the car after a long fuel run of 125 laps, and they could just set it off to the side and use it later in the race. I don't want that. I want some tire fall off. I want them to have to come up with a strategy that says, are we going to try and make a long fuel run and run these tires all the way to the end, or are we going to try and come down before we know that we have to come down for gas and have to change tires? There's got to be a happy medium, because these things were shutting off at about lap 50 of a run, which is, less than half, maybe closer to 1/3 for some of those guys who are younger and a little bit more aggressive, shall we say?
Sure.
They might have had their tires shutting off at about into 40 laps into their run, which means they're a third of the way into their fuel run. I don't want that, but I also don't want a tire that's going to last longer than a full fuel run. There's a happy medium somewhere. There's got to be.
I would guarantee probably for the fall night race, I would be shocked if PJ1 was not back on the racetrack.
Whether or not weather is a factor?
Right.
Okay.
I would be shocked if they came back with this same compound. I could see them taking the compound level maybe, I'm going to say 2 ticks up. You still have tire fall off, but it lasts a little bit longer.
I'm expecting a tire test before the fall race.
I could see it happening.
I really am. I'm expecting them to come up with a new compound like you were talking about, and we're going to get a tire test before the fall race. Because here's the other situation. Remember that first picture that we showed you that showed the rubber laying on top of the track? Mm-hmm. Let's show you a post-race interview, and this is a screenshot directly off of Fox Sports. They were talking with Kyle Larson. He's the guy whose shoulder you see right there. And you see the 48 car of Alex Bowman, who did finish in the top 5. But don't look there. Look up here. That's the track. That's, I think, going into turn 1.
Right. That is going into
end
3.
Of the front straight. Was that 3?
3. There's a crossover gate in the corner.
Okay, thank you. Look at all that rubber sitting up there. Think about that. All of that rubber is coming off of the tires, showing the cords like we were showing you just a moment ago from 3 different teams, and it's all sitting up there on the track, which meant when they came out with blowers, they were able to blow that stuff right off. Gone.
Going into that corner should be the color black as that official's jacket.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Should be that.
Yeah. For a good bottom half of the track. I mean, up to
bottom.
From below where you can see here, because pit wall here is blocking the bottom of the track, to about probably right there. That should be black.
Probably.
That should be black.
If not a little bit more.
Yeah. And I can't tell you the last time I saw that amount of marbles out of Bristol. That's ridiculous.
That actually resembled like anybody going to a beach and looking at sand, how sand would have water would go over the sand at the beach. That's what the rubber looked like, little waves.
Yep.
That's
so Goodyear and NASCAR have to figure this one out. They have to figure out what the compound's going to be. They're going to have to go do a tire test at Bristol at some point in time through the year. And it probably wouldn't be the worst thing to do it. Work on this compound and maybe come back during the Olympic break. And you got a couple of weeks there where NBC's in Olympics. You got plenty of time to put it out there on the track. Give them a couple of days, too.
Even better, go up to wherever the little breaker box switch is, flip the lights on, and do the test in a simulated race condition to where you get an accurate read of what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what they should do. So, and I have confidence in the fact that they're going to be able to do it. Because, again, Goodyear brought a good enough tire to the point where these tires didn't blow out even though they showed that much cord. So I have faith in the fact that I think Goodyear can build a tire that's going to last but not be overkill. It's not going to be just, this super tire that's going to last forever and ever. But there's an IndyCar aspect to this, and that's where this next picture is going to come up into play here. There is an IndyCar aspect here because IndyCar, also due to the Olympics, IndyCar will be on NBC all year long. NBC's got their rights. By the time we get back to Bristol, NASCAR will be on NBC as well. So they both worked with NBC because NBC has the rights to the Olympic Games. Summertime, early August. They're going to take a break. So when they did all this, IndyCar started working with NBC and figured, well, why don't we do this? Since we're going to be changing our schedule around a whole lot, we're going to make the season finale the Music City Grand Prix in Nashville, which has proven to be a very popular race.
Yep.
Well, then the NFL stepped in and stomped all over it. How? Well, the Tennessee Titans, despite the fact that their stadium is, 25 years old-ish?
Give or take.
They need a new one. This is Nashville and the Titans wanting to host a Super Bowl. That's all that is, because you and I, we were at Titan Stadium, or Nissan Stadium as it's known now.
Yep.
That's a pretty nice stadium, folks.
To be outdoor, it's not bad.
It's a pretty nice stadium. But they're going to build a new one, and they're going to build it right next to it. So if you know where Nissan Stadium is, it's right on the, what is that? The
Tennessee River.
Tennessee River. Thank you very much. It's right on the river right there. Well, river here, Nissan Stadium, here's the new stadium. Well, guess where that new stadium interfered? Right about where the paddock is and where portions of pit road are and a couple of turns are for the Music City Grand Prix. Mm-hmm. So we can't run it there. So they started looking at options going down into downtown, further into downtown over towards Broadway. Thought they had a couple of things set up. Turns out couldn't make that work. So the finale for IndyCar this year is going to be at Nashville Superspeedway. Nashville Superspeedway, for those of you that don't know, is not really a big track. It's a 1.33 mile long track. Mm-hmm. It's a D-shaped tri-oval track. It's made of concrete, like Bristol. Firestone has not had to worry about running on a concrete oval track for a long time.
It's been a while.
They've got 5 oval track races.
Nashville, Iowa.
Which they're going to run it twice, but
Gateway.
Still. Indianapolis. They're 4. So they're not running Texas this year.
No.
Okay, so they got 4 tracks, 5 races.
Right.
Because Iowa's a doubleheader, Milwaukee's a doubleheader.
Milwaukee, that's 5.
Okay, so that's what it is. So you got, and Milwaukee's a doubleheader, Iowa's a doubleheader. So you've got 5 tracks, 6 events, 7 events, whatever. My math is failing me, and I apologize. But all of them are asphalt except for Nashville Superspeedway. Firestone was asked about this because their oval track package for their tires, because they are the sole provider of the tires for IndyCar, they know now they have to do a test because you know this just as well as I do. Different compounds for different styles. Asphalt, dirt, road course, street course, super speedway versus short track versus medium track, intermediate track. All that stuff changes. Firestone's got work to do before the end of the year.
They do, but in a lot of cases, unlike Goodyear, they have their stuff together.
And we'll leave it right at that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this and a whole lot of other stuff coming up this weekend. I hope you join us. Again, that's Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. You can check us out on CRN Live on YouTube for the Championship Racing Network. And coming up again next week, we'll bring you another edition of Crossed Flags. Thank you very much for joining us.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.